Hi, I'm Sue.
And I'm Mel, and this is Manifesting with Mel and Sue. Today, we are going to be talking about Sue's Epiphanies. I kid you not, I have a note in my phone with that name, Sue's Epiphanies, and I write them all down.
So how did this start?
This started it was right after you moved into your apartment.
Yes.
And you were always just giving me these great insights, and I'm like, I love your epiphanies. I need to start writing them down. And thus my Sue's Epiphany folder in my phone was born.
Yes. So first of all, I'm flattered that you think so highly of me and the things that my mind comes up with and desperately wants to share with you. But I think there's a lot of great insight. So I actually have a list on my phone as well. So when I have a epiphany, something that I feel like is really important and that I want to remember, I add to my list. So do you want to start with one of yours and we can talk about a little bit?
So one of my favorite ones that you shared with me was "That's Not Who I Am Anymore."
Yes.
I love that one. I probably have used that one more than any of them.
I've used it today.
That's good. I used it a couple of days ago.
So what does that mean? When we say that's not who I am anymore.
So it's basically saying that you are no longer the person from your old story. You're not the person who you were before when you didn't have what you wanted, or so on.
Yeah. So for me, it came from me recognizing that I would sometimes fall back into an old story about myself, or seeing patterns that I thought that I was repeating. And so when I believed that there was a pattern there, my mind would continue to look for more evidence of it. And so when I decided that that's not who I am anymore, anytime that I found myself repeating that, I would just say, that's not who I am anymore, and then give the new story.
Yes.
And there wasn't a lot of resistance to that when I did that, because my new story about me is that's not who I am anymore, and I am choosing not to be that person. And then I just go into the old story.
Exactly. I loved that because I didn't have, when I was in the process of creating a new story, or even after I had already created it, if I found myself spiraling, or I found myself, falling back into it. And I could use it too. I can remember with other people, that's not who they are anymore. I've used it in that context, which is immensely helpful, because if you're trying to, I think this is a great example. If you have an SP and you don't like the person that they are, so you decide I'm going to make
create
them
a new
conform.
version of them.
Creating a new version, and you want them to conform, and then if you start getting, we talked about earlier in an earlier video,
if they're still showing
results
up the old way and they haven't conformed fully, or you're not perceiving them to be conformed fully, then you can say
that's not who they are anymore, and it reaffirms the new story, and you wouldn't even have to. It's as simple as, because your subconscious knows what you're affirming for. Your subconscious already knows what the new story is. So when you say, it's kind of like, for me anyway, I believe it to be a blanket affirmation, because it covers the old story. It's saying old story no longer exists. This is what the new story is, and that's who they are, not this.
Yes. Okay, so one of mine that I would like to share is, this is one that I use a lot. Thank you, God. For me, because I do believe in God, and I believe that we are all God. When we are creating our realities and we say, thank you, God, we're thanking the God within us, or the God above us, who is creating what we want in our lives. And so I use this, and you could say thank you, universe, or thank you to me, or just thank
yourself.
you.
Yes.
Just thank you in general.
Even thank you.
So the point is that you're showing gratitude. And what that does is it brings you more things to be grateful for.
Exactly.
So when I I mean, I use it as much as I possibly can. And sometimes it's in response to something happening, or sometimes it's in response to me creating a sat scene, which I think I've talked about before. A specific scene in which afterward I said, thank you, God, and really felt the relief of having that thing.
Yes.
If you can fall asleep in that state of being relieved, and thanking God, like that's a very powerful thing.
Gratitude, it really truly is
Yeah.
a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So I use it a lot.
So for me, thank you, God works because before I became a conscious manifester and I had things, basically things that I was struggling with that I was able to overcome in the past, I would thank God. Or if I avoided something bad happening, I did say that a lot in my life. And so it was a very natural transition for me as a manifester to use that. So, but use what feels comfortable for you. If you don't believe in God, like we said before, you can thank anybody that you choose to. Thank yourself, or thank
your higher self.
Thank you in general.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. I think it's funny that you say that because that's been the same for me. I've always said thank you, God, and that was something that I didn't know about you until more recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's funny.
What I like about it is it goes back to when we ask our higher selves for guidance. I know I've said before, any time in my life, even before I believed in manifesting, when I prayed to God, I got what I wanted. I either got the guidance or I got the thing that I wanted, because I had the faith that, like, I can't do this, I can't solve this, I'm putting it in your hands, and it always worked for me. And so I think that's why, for me personally, thank you, God, is such a very powerful statement, because I believe what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I agree wholeheartedly.
So do you have another one?
I do. I have, you've always told me, I think one of the first ones that I wrote down was, failure is not an option. The only option is success.
Yes.
That one, for me, it reiterated something that I already, it was an assumption and a belief that I've always had anyway. And so it was just such a powerful reminder to me, being a conscious creator.
Yes.
That, failure is never an option.
Well, here's what I like to think about failure. If you perceive there to be failures, that's normal, that's natural. But know that it's part of success.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That if you are, when you think about people who are successful in life, you think about, okay, he's controversial, sure, but you think about President Donald Trump. This man has had more than one bankruptcy and came back from it to build
several.
To build wealth and to eventually become president of our country.
Yes.
A lot of successful people have failed their way to their success.
Exactly.
You can't be successful if you give up the first thing things don't go your way. You have to persist. And so when that comes back to manifesting, what we may perceive to be a failure is just an opportunity to persist. So it's part of the process.
I like, Orly Waba said this. She said that our challenges in life, which can also be considered, failures, are there to bring out, is to pull something out of you that would not have otherwise been pulled out. And it's something that you need.
Yes.
And I that was so profound for me, and it really resonated with me, because sometimes we don't realize that we need to have these things.
Right. Because we learn from them.
Exactly.
And that's what makes us successful in the end.
Yes. And it's all part of the growth. Like, growth is so important, especially for success. And it's true. It was so funny that you brought that up, because I was just reading the other day about how successful people, you only see them, in general, we only see them after they've become successful.
Right.
You don't see people like
all
Thomas
of the years
Edison.
They struggled.
He, I guess, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when he was asked about when he created the light bulb, he said, I found I don't know, there was thousands. It was thousands of attempts that did not work until the one that did. And he said, I just found X number of ways how not to make a light bulb.
Right.
And I really liked that perspective. And I love Henry Ford. I loved, he was very innovative for his time. And he was very persistent when he first made the first car. And he told his engineers, he said, you know, you're going to figure this out. And they're like, this is impossible. And he said, keep working on it until you do. And it took them over a year, but they did it. And it wasn't their belief. It was his. He's like, I know you're going to figure it out. Just keep working on it until you do. And he'd come back and be like, how are you doing? And they're like, it's impossible. And like, well, keep working on it until you figure it out. And he kept saying that over and over. Just keep working on it until you figure it out. And so that was kind of, for me, it was the same concept of failure is not an option.
Yep.
Just like one of his quotes, is one of my favorite quotes that he has, is whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right.
Yep.
And so I love that. And so that all ties into failure is not an option. You only fail when you stop trying.
Absolutely. So another one that I have is, kind of two that go together. And I've used these in manifesting. And one is, I am doing everything right. And it's working. It's always working. Mm-hmm. And what those mean are like, there have been times when I have questioned, maybe when I was getting opposite results or I wasn't getting what I wanted, I would remind myself that I'm doing everything right, because I don't know how many times I've asked you, like, what am I doing wrong? You know,
and what do I always say to you?
What's wrong with me?
What do I say?
Nothing. You're doing everything right.
Yes.
Right.
And what do you say to me when I ask you the exact same question?
You are doing everything right.
Yes, exactly.
And it's true.
It is true.
You get opposite results because your subconscious is impressed. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
You're doing everything right.
Exactly.
So it is true. And if you're questioning whether something's working or not, the easiest thing you can do is to just assume that it is.
Yes.
It's working. It's always working.
Mm-hmm.
It's working. It's always working. So those are two of my favorite for manifesting specifically.
Yes. Another one that I liked was you would always tell me that when I was manifesting, it was probably, it was a year ago, I think, maybe not quite a year ago. And my husband and I were going through a tough patch, and I kept repeating the old story. And you kept telling me, I'm so glad he's showing up exactly how you want him to. And you had me say the same thing. I would say, oh, I'm so glad he's showing up exactly how I want him to. And sure enough, no matter what, when I would spiral, when I would, have my little, my little tangents and go back to the old story, and you would say, I'm so glad he's showing up exactly the way you want him to. And I kid you not, within, it wasn't even a couple of weeks, was it? It was not that long. He was showing up exactly how I wanted him to. We are now, our relationship is better than it's been in a very long time. We're good friends again. It's really funny.
Yes, that's true. It's funny because it's actually similar to, and I have used that affirmation a lot in the past, but my current affirmation, which is very similar, is I am loved in exactly the way that I want to be.
Yes, I love that one.
And
I actually wrote it down because I was like, that resonates.
Yes, and what I love about it so much is like being in a relationship and affirming for the other person to be the way that you want them to, for me, caused me a lot of resistance and putting too much importance on the other person.
Yes.
So I flipped it and turned it back around on me. I am loved in exactly the way that I want to be. And I just try and like remind myself of that and stay in that state. And then things start moving in that direction. So it's just a variation of he's showing up exactly the way I want him to. I'm just putting the focus back on me.
The self-concept.
I am being loved in exactly the way that I want to be.
I love that.
And your
I use
subconscious
that.
knows exactly what you want. If you grew up watching romantic movies like I did and having big romantic gestures, your subconscious is going to remember that and it's going to be like, hey, Sue, I know how much you love this, so have some of this.
Yes, that's exactly true.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
All right, so let's see if I have another one. Oh, here's one that I like when I am struggling with whatever. And this is probably something people have heard before, but it really helps bring me peace. And it's "This too shall pass."
Yes. That's one of my favorites. I've used that my entire life.
Yes. And it's true because anything that you are fighting or struggling with in your life is going to pass. It always does. It's along the same lines of everything is going to be okay.
Yes.
So that's something that I want everybody to take with them. Like, if you're ever having a hard time and you can't pull yourself out of it or you don't have someone to talk to, just remind yourself that it is going to pass.
Yes, that is so true. I love that one because it reminds me from a different perspective. If you think of something that was really challenging in your life, 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and you look at you now and you're like, it wasn't as bad. When you're going through it, it might seem absolutely terrible, and you get out on the other side and you kind of get a little bit of distance from it even, and you can look back and you can say it was necessary. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or I got through it.
Yeah.
And
you always get through it.
You always do.
You always do.
You have survived 100% of the problems that you have gone through so far. That is not going to change. It never will. So you guys are batting 100. You're doing awesome. Keep reminding yourself how awesome you are doing.
Yes. All right. Do you have another one?
Let me look real quick. I do. I have a notebook too that I've been writing things down because I don't always have my phone with me. Sometimes I just write them down when we're talking or whatever. But I liked a while back, we'd had a conversation about flaws. And you had said to me, you said, I affirm that no one can see my flaws.
My flaws are invisible.
My flaws are invisible. I'm flawless. And I really liked that. And
I have since changed that in my new affirmations on my list.
Oh, really? What is it now?
My new affirmation is I'm absolutely perfect in every way.
Yes, I remember you sharing that one with me.
So there's no flaws to be invisible anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. And I actually, when you told me about that affirmation, I started using that one, and I don't use the flawless one anymore. And I did start noticing. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever resonates with you. So my question to you guys is, what of all the epiphanies that we have shared of Sue's, what is your favorite? Comment below to tell us. Or if you have something similar.
Yes, what's your epiphany?
Share yours.
Yes.
We want to hear what yours are too.
Absolutely.
Do you have any more that you want to share of yours?
Let's see. I have a ton of them, but
we both do.
One that I like is what you resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have heard this before, and it just means like what you're focusing on is going to continue. So if you are resisting something that's in your reality, you're putting focus on it, you're fighting it against it, it's going to continue to be there. And the only solution to that is to take your attention away from it.
Exactly.
So if you can't take your attention away, because sometimes that's not possible, like if you're at work and dealing with a crappy boss or whatever, another thing that you can do instead of taking your attention away to make yourself not resisting to it anymore. I could have worded that a little better, but that's okay. I'm absolutely perfect in every way. To drop that resistance that you're having in the moment is to just accept it in the moment for what it is. And you don't dwell on it, right? But just accept that this is the way things are now, but I know it's going to be different because new story or whatever. Yes. But just to be at peace, don't be resisting the current moment. Really focus on being at peace.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I love that because in the moment you can, it's also called radical accepting, when you just accept this is how it is and this is how it's going to be for the moment. And because you can change it. You can
this too shall pass.
Exactly. And you can create a blanket affirmation for it, and you can change the situation, but in the moment, accept it and have that peace, because there is something about accepting it, and it doesn't make it okay. It's not condoning what's going on. It's not making it okay. It's just accepting that it's happening, and then that it gives you that opportunity. It creates a space for that peace.
Yes, I like that. And then, so I want to share a couple more. We got to wrap this up. This is a really long video.
Yes.
A couple
Yes,
more
good one,
before
though.
we sign off is just some blanket affirmations that you can use I would use as you're falling asleep at night. If you're not affirming for anything specific, when you are in a really drowsy state, affirm to yourself either, I had two that I wanted to say. One of them is, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
So just saying, I did it. Because when you manifest something and it happens, what are you going to think? I did it, right? So if you affirm, I did it. And you could be thinking of what it is that you want. You could be thinking about any number of things that you want, but just affirming, I did it. Because that statement alone, there's no resistance to it. Like, how many times have you said that in your life? Just affirm, I did it. And the more that you are affirming that, the more it's going to be created in your reality. And then the other one that I couldn't remember and that I'm using now is, actually I have a reminder on my phone for bedtime, is all problems are solved. And that comes from Neville. So when you have that thought of all problems are solved and you repeat that, what you're going to feel is relief. And that's a really great state to fall asleep in when you, especially if you're feeling stressed out, because then like the stress is going to be replaced with relief, and that's what you're going for.
Exactly, because you don't want to fall asleep stressed. You don't want to fall asleep with worry or any of those less desirable feelings.
Always be aware of your state right before you go to sleep.
Exactly, like be aware of what you're putting into your brain before you fall asleep, whether it's social media, movies, TV shows, whatever.
Or just music, like replaying the day's events, that kind of thing. It could be anything. Just be aware of what your state is before you're putting yourself in your most receptive state of mind.
Exactly.
Right?
That is probably the best tip. The best epiphany.
Thank you. So I think that's enough for now. Please share, like we said, share your favorite epiphanies or affirmations in the comments below, and like, share, and subscribe.
Don't forget, go out and manifest that dream life.